Welcome to Transform Your Menopause with Essex Menopause Coach, the go-to podcast for anyone struggling from peri to post-menopause. If you're feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, or anxious, this is the place for you. Hosted by me, Julie, an award-winning coach who's been in your shoes, this podcast offers real understanding and practical help. I'll tackle menopause head-on with clear, no-nonsense guidance that makes a real difference. So whether you need support, tips, or just a friendly voice, I'm here to help you navigate menopause and rediscover your best self. Nice to see you again. So today's episode is called Menopause Diet Simplified. I believe that the wellness industry completely overcomplicates menopause well-being. And I think we can cut through that with some really simple but effective tools. Now, today I'm going to focus on day-to-day dietary things that you can do that can have a really big impact. So the best thing about these tips we'll go through today is that they will give you quick results and it's something you can go away and action immediately. The last thing you need when you are struggling with brain fog, overwhelm, anxiety is complicated advice to follow. So the best thing about this, it's simple. And you know what? Simple is truly powerful. I think before we start talking about the food side of things, we actually need to explore what's going on in your body so that you can understand why what you eat on a daily basis is important. The amount of estrogen being produced by your ovaries starts to decline. Your adrenal glands are able to provide a little bit of backup. Your adrenal glands are also the glands responsible for your stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Now, your adrenals are not able to prioritize that estrogen when you're chronically stressed. Now, as it happens, perimenopause and menopause tends to strike just when we're probably the most stressed we're ever going to be in our whole lives. You might be at the peak of your career professionally. You might have hormonal teenagers at home. You might have aging parents that you're taking care of yourself. Lots of community responsibilities. Either way, you're spinning loads of plates. And that's why this is important, because we can't always control those external stressors, but we can control what we consume to help calm that internal environment. So what's the relationship between what we eat and stress? When we are stressed, we release cortisol. So cortisol stimulates the release of glucose into your bloodstream. So that's really going to power your muscles to enable you to run away from that lion that's going to hunt you down and kill you. I mean, the only problem is you're not being chased. It's your husband's breathing that's incredibly annoying. It's your child winding you up. It's sitting in traffic. So that triggers off insulin. Insulin is there to mop up all of this excess glucose from your bloodstream. Now, what's happening here is this is creating really steep rises and falls in your blood sugar levels. And these basically represent stress in your body and can really exacerbate your symptoms. Now, it's really normal for your blood sugar to rise and fall every time you eat and over the following hours. But what you want to see is gentle rolling hills, not huge mountainous rises and falls. Each time your blood sugar drops, your body is reading this as stress and releases off cortisol again, which then triggers off the glucose. And you can see you're going around in this vicious circle for the rest of the day. As I said earlier, you've got some real easy choices that you can make and make adjustments into your day to see some real tangible benefits. So let's begin with liquids. And on top of your liquid consumption can really help with fatigue, headaches, anxiety, sleep, skin dryness, and joint pains. So let's start with water then. Most of us aren't consuming enough water. You might think you've been getting away with it for years, and you probably have. But as we age, our body isn't able to store so much water and you become dehydrated more quickly. Dehydration is read by your body as a stressful situation. So again, you're off down that stress cycle. I find the easiest way to combat this is to just carry a water bottle around with me in the day, and just sip it. I find when I'm driving in the car, I can easily drink a litre bottle of water. Now, when it comes to how much, so that we generally quote 1.5 to 2 litres, but this doesn't just have to come from water. It can come from the foods you eat, soups, herbal teas, decaffeinated drinks. So it makes it much easier for you to achieve this. But also, one thing I would say is find what your starting point is now. Don't go from drinking, maybe a glass of water a day to trying to down 2 litres in one go. You're going to be on the toilet all day, every day. I would say just find out what your starting point is, measure it over a couple of days, and then just increase by like 1 glass for a couple of weeks. See how you go with that, and then increase again after that, and start to see and feel what difference this has on your body. And you'll probably notice actually after a few weeks that your thirst cues start to kick in. So this leads us on to alcohol. Alcohol and women in perimenopause and menopause just aren't best friends anymore, which is unfortunate, I know. And I find a lot of women are drinking to try and ease their anxiety, to try and help them sleep at night. And a lot of us pick maybe more detrimental drinking habits in lockdown during COVID when we were all cooped up inside all of the time. So not only does alcohol just represent a sugar dump into your bloodstream, but your liver has a role in detoxing excess hormones. And if your liver is busy having to try and metabolize the alcohol that you're drinking on a daily basis, it's not going to be able to work on those old hormones. Um, and that can see them being recirculated and exacerbate your symptoms. Also, like as I said, alcohol really has an impact on your sleep. So if you're drinking in the evening before bed and you're someone that wakes up regularly 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, this could well be due to your blood sugar levels dropping. So that might be something you need to work on. But we know that poor sleep also contributes to poor blood sugar control. And that leaves you waking up in the morning exhausted before you've even started. Which leads us on nicely on to caffeine. So I know a lot of women start the day straight away with a cup of coffee or a strong cup of tea. But this really isn't the best way to begin. You're putting your body immediately into that stress cycle. You're dehydrated after a long night of sleep, hopefully. Well, hopefully a long night of sleep. So you need to start with water. So again, you can have your herbal teas, a warm water with, I don't know, maybe a slice of ginger, slice of lemon, whatever takes your fancy, but keep the caffeine for a couple of more hours if you can. And the trouble with caffeine as well is not so much the caffeine itself, but what tends to come with it, I find. So 10 o'clock, you might be having a couple of biscuits with your morning coffee, sneaking in a slice of cake maybe at the 3, 4 o'clock, cup of tea. So you see that those refined sugars will also be having an impact on your blood sugar levels and contributing to your symptoms. I am rather partial to a cup of coffee myself, and I'm not saying no to caffeine at all. But what I would suggest is keeping it to before 12 lunchtime, and ideally consume it with a meal. So that helps to flatten the curve that caffeine gives. But definitely no later than 2 o'clock. Caffeine has quite a long active life, and I think you'd be surprised just how much of an impact that afternoon tea or coffee might be having. Now, I always remember a client that I worked with who we had this same discussion, and she said to me that there was absolutely no way her tea drinking habit was having an impact on her sleep. She said that she had been drinking tea all day, every day for her whole entire life, and it had never had an impact on her sleep. So we agreed that this is what she would work on for the next couple of weeks. And we put it down just for 2 days of the week that she would do this. So she kept her cups of teas to before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think on the third day, she was on the phone to me telling me how she had been sleeping like a log and couldn't believe the impact that this was having on her. So this then becomes a no-brainer for you, doesn't it? I mean, your brain loves that positive reinforcement. It loves feeling good, and you feel good because you're, you know, alleviating those symptoms. So why would you not roll this out in other days and in other areas of your life, and try out other aspects of your diet to see what impact they could have? But the important thing here is that she did that one thing at a time, so she knew that the thing that made a difference was the caffeine itself. Okay, then moving on. So balanced meals. Balancing your meals is one of the best things that you can do to balance your blood sugar levels. In doing this, you will increase your energy, reduce your brain fog, improve your mood swings, and it will also help you with your sleep again. I think the easiest way to think of this is to look at your plate and imagine it as half a plate of vegetables, quarter protein, and a quarter carbohydrate. So I know that all of our plates have been getting larger and larger over the years. So if you imagine your clenched fist being the size of your protein, and another clenched fist your carbohydrate component, that's roughly the right amount for your meal ratios. And the other half of the plate, as I say, would be vegetables. So if you imagine a typical meal growing up, my mum often gave us a massive bowl of white pasta. And with that, you'd have a little bit of meat and sauce on top. And then we'd probably cover the whole thing in grated cheese as well. So to make that more in line with this ratio, what you could do is to take the white pasta to brown, and rather having the whole bowl, you measure it out via your clenched fist. So just looking at that now, you can imagine that is much smaller than what you're having now. Likewise with the protein, you probably need to increase the amount of mince you have in that meal to get that in line with the ratios that we're discussing. Now, the veg components, so you could have your tinned tomatoes, garlic, onion. You could maybe put some mushrooms in there, some grated courgettes, some chopped carrots. You could put some lentils in there. So you can see that you can take an ordinary family meal and make it more in line with that ratio. Now, ideally, I think you need to be aiming for 3 meals a day. I think you should be able to go 4, maybe 5 hours in between meals without snacking. If you're having breakfast, lunch, dinner, whichever meal, and you're hungry an hour, 2 hours later, then you need to really have a look at these ratios and see how you can adjust that meal to better fit with that. And I guarantee that that will really help you with your cravings. It is normal to get a little bit hungry before your meal, so just hang in there and you'll enjoy your meal that much more. But you shouldn't be ravenous, you shouldn't be getting headaches, you shouldn't be feeling shaky. I think when it comes to carbs, it's better to think of fiber rather than carb itself, because that really helps to guide you towards the type of foods you should be eating. So veg has a lot of fiber in it, oats, pulses, brown rice. In terms of protein, there's loads of options: Greek yogurt, lean meat, fish, lentils, nuts, eggs, hummus, seeds. So you can really start to envisage how you can spread that out over the 3 meals of your day. Okay, and lastly, to focus on your gut health. So we know that working on your gut health really has a whole body impact, but we know that gut health has a really significant role in anxiety, depression, low mood. About 90% of serotonin is produced in your gut, so that's your feel good hormone. And also, your microbiome changes as your hormones dip. So it becomes super important to pay that much more attention to what you're eating. So just to emphasize this, there was a trial, it was called the SMILES trial. There was a group of clinically depressed people who were divided into 2 groups. Now, one of those groups received support to bring their diet more in line with a Mediterranean style diet, and the other group received support, more social support really, to see if that would improve their symptoms. So they were followed for 12 weeks. They were given the advice for 12 weeks. And at the end of that, the group that received nutritional support, I think the stat is about 32% of those were no longer clinically depressed. And that's versus 8% of the social support group. So that really goes to show the power of your diet on how you feel. How can you go about improving your gut health, your microbiome? Simply by eating more variety. So more plant-based variety equals more diversity in your diet and improved symptoms for you. How do you do that? I know it's easy to get stuck in a recipe rut, what you're going to cook for dinner every night. But if you could introduce just one new recipe a week, just imagine the difference that could have. So that's 4 new meals over the course of a month. Imagine rolling that out over the course of a year. And of course, if you're cooking from scratch more often, that introduces more prebiotics into your diet. So that's prebiotics are what feed your microbiome, your gut bacteria. And that's things like garlic, leeks, onions, artichokes, asparagus, oats, apples. And then also you can work on improving your gut health by introducing probiotics. Now, I'm not talking expensive supplements. I get asked about these a lot. You can make quite a big difference again with diet. So generally speaking, we're talking fermented foods, things like kefir, miso, kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut, tempeh. And it's much easier to introduce these into a diet than you think. So things like if you took kimchi, for example, you can add that to your omelette in the morning, add it to your salad that you're taking to work. You can make overnight oats with kefir. The important thing is with probiotics is it's something you need to introduce daily, but you don't need to have loads of it, just a little bit. But I know what you're thinking is, yeah, but there's nothing we didn't know there. It's not sexy. It's nothing new. But when you're down in the depths with your symptoms, I think you need something that's simple and you need something that's going to work. As we wrap up the episode, one tip to help you put this in place is just to choose one of the things that I've discussed in this episode. Maybe drinking an extra glass of water, maybe having a night off alcohol, maybe introducing one new recipe a week, and just work on that for the next few weeks. Why just one? Because one isn't overwhelming, one is effective and powerful, but also you are able to begin to feel the impact that makes on your body. And I truly believe that feeling and creating that positive feedback is what drives you forward and makes long-term change. So I am curious, what's the one thing you've decided to work on? Let me know by dropping me a voice note or get in touch with me on Instagram. I'll put my handle in the show notes. What I do, I think, in a future episode is to focus on the steps to take to implement this kind of change. I'll break it down a little bit further for you. So maybe you'll come back for that one. Thank you for listening to this episode. I'd love to know your feedback. If there's anyone else you think would benefit from listening to this podcast, please do share it with them. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.